Have you ever felt underestimated just because of your job or appearance? I have a story for you today, one I promise you'll never forget. It's a story about an anonymous woman who, because of societal prejudice, was denied the right to use the elevator in her own building. And then a single sentence from the CEO changed everything. Can you imagine that someone who simply worked as a cleaner could actually own the entire building? Have we ever truly seen the people we deem lowly or unimportant for who they really are? Let's dive into this story and reflect on ourselves. That day in a tall building, a cleaning woman stepped into the elevator. She wore a janitor's uniform, her face calm, drawing no attention. When the elevator stopped, a group of employees from an upper floor stepped in. They saw her and immediately halted, refusing to let her share the elevator. One of them said, "You need to take the service elevator." No explanation, no respectful look. She stood still, silent, enduring the rejection. But the story didn't end there. She wasn't who they thought she was. Just moments later, the building's CEO stepped in and said, "She owns this building." That one sentence changed everything. The room flipped. Shocked expressions, overwhelming shame. They couldn't believe that the woman they had looked down upon wielded such power. This story isn't just about the embarrassment felt by the people in the elevator. It's a profound lesson about the hidden power within those we often overlook. Have you ever viewed someone through a mistaken lens? Let's explore this story together, understand the lessons it holds, and see how we can change the way we perceive others in our society. This is only the beginning. Let's delve deeper into larger issues, the prejudices and assumptions we carry in our everyday lives. We'll examine how society sorts people by appearance and occupation, and more importantly, how we can shift our thinking so that no one is left behind. Prepare yourself, because this story won't just change how you see others. It may change how you see yourself. We don't often realize that discrimination can stem from the smallest things, from actions we think are harmless. A simple moment in an elevator can open the door to an entire world of prejudice, and sometimes we don't realize we're part of it. That day in a tall building, a woman in a janitor's uniform stepped into the elevator. She didn't stand out. Nothing about her seemed different from others in the same role. Her hands were rough, her face expressionless, and no one paid her any mind. When the elevator stopped at another floor, a group of employees from upstairs entered, saw her, and instantly commanded, "You need to take the back elevator." No explanation, no respectful gaze. We often don't realize that in situations like this, discrimination doesn't need to be spoken aloud. Just a passing glance, a seemingly harmless action, is enough to make someone feel like they don't belong. And for her, the elevator had always been a place of exclusion. I once witnessed a similar scene during a meeting at a large company. A woman working as a secretary brought in stacks of documents, and everyone simply overlooked her. No one asked if she felt comfortable. No one paid her any attention. She stood there, placed the documents on the table, and quietly left as if she didn't exist in that space. For her, it was a fleeting moment, but to others, they never truly saw her. She, like the janitor in our story, was judged by her appearance, occupation, and social position. This kind of discrimination isn't always racial or explicit. Sometimes it's embedded in how we silently perceive others. We easily judge people by how they look or what they do. We forget that every individual has their own story and unique potential. The janitor in this story, unknown to everyone, held immense power and commanded great respect. And the biggest lesson we learn here is never judge someone solely by appearances. Everyone has unique value, possibly an untold story or a potential you never imagined. But the story doesn't end here. Everything was about to change in an instant when the CEO stepped in and flipped all assumptions upside down. That was when the truth began to unfold, and people realized that sometimes we let small ingrained biases shape how we see others without even knowing it. This story will make you ask yourself, have you ever judged someone based on the job they do? When the janitor stepped into the elevator, everyone inside treated her as part of the space, but as an invisible part. The people in the elevator had no idea that she owned the building, because to them she was just a cleaning woman. She wore a simple blue uniform, holding a mop. Nothing about her made her stand out. They saw her through a foggy pane of glass, like a hollow shadow there to keep things clean. But no one knew that beneath that image, she was the one who built it all. In the eyes of many, jobs like cleaning, janitorial work, or service roles are always seen as low class. But the janitor didn't see herself that way. She knew her worth. But in the eyes of others, she was just a cog in the machine, someone they never needed to notice. This is a common situation in society, the quiet kind of prejudice that we don't even realize, where people are judged by what they do rather than who they are. A friend of mine, when she first started working at a large company, often encountered disrespectful glances. She was an administrative assistant. Her job was to handle paperwork and arrange meetings. At first, hardly anyone paid attention to her. They saw her as support staff, someone outside the circle of importance. What they didn't know was that she was the one directly managing key internal issues, helping the company resolve major challenges. These people couldn't see her true value just because her role wasn't deemed important. The lesson here is we cannot judge people based on the job they do. Everyone has unique abilities and contributions, even if they're not immediately visible. The jobs we consider small are often the ones that keep everything running smoothly. We must learn to respect every profession, because that's how we honor all the quiet contributions around us. And in that moment, when the janitor was denied access to the elevator, society constructed an idea of her that she was insignificant, not worth noticing. But a single sentence from the CEO changed everything. The truth about her, about the real power she held, began to emerge. We're often too quick to judge others based on what we see. But do we truly understand their value just by looking at them? This is a story that will make you rethink all the snap judgments you make every day. When the janitor stepped into the elevator, no one there saw her as a person with power. They only saw a woman in plain clothes holding a mop and a trash bucket, just like any other cleaner they'd ever seen. They didn't see the value in her. They only saw her role as a manual laborer. In their minds, she was just someone beneath them, a job that didn't require intellect, creativity, or influence. The people in the elevator looked at her like part of the invisible infrastructure, someone who never left a mark, just a worker with nothing special. This kind of imagination isn't rare in our society. We constantly judge others based on profession, appearance, and other surface-level traits without ever caring about their real stories. Jobs like janitor, security guard, or server are viewed as unimportant, even though these people are the ones who maintain the systems around us. Society often creates a thin veil between us and them, making it easy to dismiss them based on shallow standards, never realizing their strength and true value. Surely you've seen janitors working all day in office buildings, keeping everything clean and orderly. One of them I'll never forget was Ms. Lee, who cleaned the mall where I used to work. Ms. Lee often walked alone through the wide corridors, rarely noticed by anyone. But few people knew that she helped many in that mall, from times of health emergencies to difficult moments. She had a deep knowledge of the area, knew every corner of the building, and more importantly, she created bonds among the working community there. In reality, Miss Lee was the one holding things together, easing tensions, resolving conflicts, though everyone only knew her as the cleaning lady. The lesson here is that we should never judge someone's worth by what we see on the surface. Every person, no matter what job they hold, has contributions and untold stories. We must learn to value people based on their abilities and qualities, not on the outer roles they play. Sometimes a humble job carries the weight of keeping a community running smoothly and peacefully. Yet just one unexpected sentence from the CEO changed everything. We then witnessed that beneath the lowly image society assigned her, there lay a tremendous power waiting to be revealed. And when that janitor was denied the right to use the elevator, the CEO entered and shattered every false assumption in that room. Those cold glances, those disrespectful remarks were suddenly silenced. But what happens when a single sentence from someone truly powerful flips everything upside down? Right at the moment the janitor was denied access to the elevator, no one inside realized that in just a brief second, everything was about to change. The people standing in the elevator hadn't even had time to recover from their own silence, and the janitor's reaction when suddenly the CEO of the building stepped in. The janitor's eyes glimmered with confidence, as if she had been waiting for this very moment. And then the words were spoken. "She owns this building." A short sentence, but enough to shake the entire room. Everything around them seemed to awaken. That sentence from the CEO wasn't just a confirmation of power, it was a moment of reckoning for those who had just judged her by appearance or occupation. The elevator fell silent for a beat, and the truth began to surface before everyone's eyes. The shock wasn't just that the janitor owned the building. It was the realization that their assumptions had been completely wrong. She wasn't some anonymous worker, someone to be ignored. She was a central, irreplaceable part of this entire structure. The CEO's intervention made it clear power and roles aren't always what they seem. It's hard to imagine, but just one sentence revealed it all. True power doesn't come from position or looks, it comes from the recognition of someone's real ability and worth. I once witnessed a similar situation where a department head at a large company was unknowingly ranked beneath a lower-level employee in a meeting. Everyone assumed he was the sole decision-maker until a secretary unexpectedly stood up and clarified a crucial issue the department head had missed. Her intervention changed the entire conversation. From that point on, people began to view her differently, not as someone who simply handled schedules and logistics, but as a key player. Eventually, she earned more trust and responsibility. Her role hadn't changed, but people's perception of her had. The takeaway here is never underestimate someone just because they don't show up in a suit or hold a senior title. Sometimes true power doesn't look like what we expect it to. The CEO's action in this story reminds us that a person's value can't be judged by job title alone. Have you ever been misjudged because of your job or the way you look? Have you ever felt like you weren't respected due to societal assumptions? And so the truth was revealed, and now it's time to reflect on the deeper meaning of the story. What we think we know might just be illusions, assumptions we easily fall into. But when the story of the janitor unfolded, everything became clearer. And this is the moment when we must reevaluate how we treat others, even in the smallest interactions. The limits we place on others aren't always true. When the truth is exposed, things rarely turn out the way we thought. Have you ever wondered if the people you assumed to be powerless actually held influence you couldn't imagine? When the CEO entered and confirmed that the janitor owned the building, everything flipped. The assumptions made by the people in the elevator, and perhaps by you, were erased in an instant. In that moment, everyone realized that her true power was what mattered, not her title or role. The entire space seemed to awaken. Those who had once deemed her unimportant were forced to reevaluate her immediately. This story isn't just about a reversal of power. It's a deep reflection on discrimination and the assumptions we often carry about others. We have a tendency to classify people into high or low groups based on their job position or even their appearance. But the truth is, power and human worth aren't always visible on the surface. A single sentence from the CEO proved that there are forces we can't predict. When we drop those quick judgments, we open ourselves to seeing the real value in others. And so the most important lesson here is never judge someone by their exterior alone. Look deeper at who they really are and the strength they carry. I remember attending a startup conference once. One of the keynote speakers wasn't dressed sharply. He looked plain, almost invisible among the crowd. I didn't think much of him at first, but when he began to tell his story of building a business from scratch, of overcoming hardship, and leading a company now worth millions, everyone in the room fell silent. He didn't come from wealth or status. What he had was intelligence, grit, and vision. And it made me rethink all the assumptions I had carried into that room about what a leader should look like. People you consider lowly or unimportant may be the ones with the greatest impact in certain situations. Real power doesn't always come from job title or appearance, but from awareness of one's value and ability to shape the world. Don't let assumptions about work or presentation prevent you from recognizing those with enormous potential. Have you ever judged someone just by how they looked without really knowing them? Do you think that societal prejudice could be preventing you from seeing the limitless potential of those around you? And when the truth is finally out, not only do the eyes of others shift, but deeper thoughts about work power and people begin to form. The story of the janitor invites us to a deeper reflection on prejudice. And now we're left with a greater question. Are we unconsciously creating invisible barriers that blind us to the true worth of others? We often judge others by the work they do. But is that really the right way to measure someone's true value? Sometimes the jobs we consider small are actually the most essential pieces in the bigger picture. When the story of the janitor owning the building came to light, it wasn't just an example that exposed social prejudice. It became a reminder of how we evaluate people. Think for a moment, when you see someone in a janitor's uniform or doing a job that's not glamorous, have you ever wondered if they might hold a kind of power you never imagined? This cleaning lady, though seen by those around her as just someone who worked quietly in the background, actually held a massive fortune. So why are we so quick to judge people based on their job title rather than who they really are? Occupational discrimination is one of the most common tendencies in society. We're quick to sort people into categories based on what they do for a living, the cashier, the housemaid, the driver, the janitor, and then forget that these jobs are only one piece of a larger human identity. In truth, the work someone does may simply be a choice based on circumstance, and it doesn't always reflect their capabilities, aspirations, or dreams. We're often bound by social assumptions about professions. Jobs like CEO, lawyer, or doctor are praised and admired, while cleaning, serving, or driving are often dismissed as though they are invisible. This creates an invisible divide between people in society, and it's deeply unfair. Everyone, no matter what they do, possesses their own strengths and dignity. Sometimes the people society overlooks are the very ones holding power we can't see. Think about domestic workers. They may be quiet, diligent individuals who go unnoticed, but many of them build incredibly strong relationships within their communities. I have a friend who works as a housekeeper for a wealthy family. She doesn't just manage the home, she holds it together. She connects the family members, keeps things in harmony, and has helped numerous other families around her. Few realize how many people she's supported or how many lives she's impacted. Her work may not be celebrated, but her presence is invaluable. The message here is, don't let someone's job or appearance dictate how you treat them. Everyone has a story, and they might be working a certain job because of timing, responsibility, or opportunity, but that doesn't mean they lack potential or strength. Jobs don't define people entirely, and we need to learn how to see others for their deeper values. Have you ever judged someone for what they do only to later realize you were wrong? Are you missing out on learning from someone around you just because they don't hold a respectable job in your eyes? We've clearly seen the impact of hasty judgment. But what happens when we look at others, not just by their role, but by what they truly bring to the world? Can we begin to shift our mindset and build a fairer, more respectful society? The story of the janitor helps us realize that people's value isn't measured by what you can immediately see. We can recognize social prejudice in many forms through occupation, race, the way people treat each other. But have we truly grasped the full weight of those actions? What if we started to break the bias we unconsciously passed down? The janitor's story and the CEO's powerful intervention showed us this discrimination doesn't always come with insults or shouting. It often hides in small actions and silent thoughts. Everyone in that elevator judged her by what she wore and what they assumed she did. But when the truth was revealed, they saw how deeply wrong they had been. She wasn't just ordinary. She wasn't the lowly person they imagined. She owned the building, and she possessed a strength they could never have guessed. Discrimination doesn't always reveal itself in loud, offensive gestures. Sometimes it's embedded in how we instinctively respond to someone's appearance, status, or speech. Like the janitor in this story, people can be dismissed for low jobs or for simply not fitting into a certain image. These assumptions form quietly over time, taught to us by how society sees roles, and we don't realize how much damage they cause. A friend of mine used to work as a server in a high-end restaurant. She was often treated with condescension because of her role, even though she was the lead customer liaison for the entire establishment. One day, when a high-profile guest's order came out wrong and tensions flared, my friend, calm and professional, stepped in, diffused the situation, and salvaged the evening. The guest was so impressed they became a regular client. Afterward, my friend was promoted and entrusted with even greater responsibilities. But no one had seen her value before that moment because they had judged her solely based on her job. Don't let assumptions and quiet biases stop you from recognizing someone's true worth. The job a person holds does not define the power they carry. Just like the janitor, someone others viewed as invisible turned out to hold immense influence. Discrimination is not limited to race or gender. It can be present in how we regard someone's work. Have you ever caught yourself treating someone unfairly because of their job? Could the assumptions we carry every day be holding us back from seeing the real value in those around us? Now that we've uncovered the truth about discrimination, we must ask ourselves, are we unknowingly contributing to these false perceptions in our daily lives? The story of the janitor reminds us that power isn't about job title or salary. It's about the respect, impact, and real capabilities a person brings. So how do we change our mindset and create a world that values everyone equally? we have witnessed how power can reveal itself beneath layers that seem completely invisible. But where does true power come from? Is real power, what we have always believed it to be. When the story of the janitor was revealed, one thing became clear. Power does not necessarily stem from high social positions or glamorous jobs. True power lies in the ability to bring about change, in the respect one earns, and in the influence a person has, not necessarily in job titles or office attire. The janitor, someone everyone could have easily overlooked, turned out to be the most powerful person in the entire building. Throughout this story, we've seen that power doesn't always manifest in obvious ways. It doesn't always belong to those with big titles. It can rest with the most ordinary people, the ones whom society tends to undervalue. Prejudice and quick judgment often cloud our ability to recognize that kind of hidden strength. That's what blinds people to the fact that power sometimes exists where they least expect it. Power is not something you measure with money or hierarchy. It comes from the ability to make a difference, to help others, and more importantly, to lead by example. Real power lies in the impact a person can have on their environment without needing authority or force. It's found in the respect you earn, the integrity you show, and the values you live by. A real-life example is Sarah, a high school teacher at a public school. She wasn't well known. She didn't have influential connections, but she gave special care and attention to students in need. Sarah may not have had wealth or social status, but she changed the lives of dozens of students. To them, she was a mentor, a guide, someone they could always count on. Her power didn't come from her place in the education system. It came from her compassion and her unwavering commitment. That's the kind of power no institution can bestow. True power doesn't always lie in the job you hold or the position you're given. It lies in your ability to create positive change in how you live and treat others. Remember, power can't always be seen with the eye. Often the greatest power lies in small actions, the shifts you make in your world without needing to be recognized. Have you ever felt powerless simply because your job or circumstances didn't seem impressive? Have you considered that your kindness, your sense of fairness, and how you treat others might be where your real strength lies? The lessons from this story don't end with how we judge others. They also ask us to look inward, to reimagine how we see power in our own lives. Power isn't a destination, it's a journey, and each of us can shape the world in our own way. So how do we begin to recognize true power in ourselves and those around us? We've revisited our assumptions about power and the biases we unknowingly uphold. But the real question is, can we change how we treat others? And you, what will you do to be part of that change? At the end of this story, I want you to take a moment to reflect on something deeply important: the way we judge and treat people. Have we overlooked someone's worth simply because they lacked a title, a fancy outfit, or a position of prestige? Has society taught us to ignore the people who aren't at the top? The janitor's story teaches us that true power and worth don't lie in appearances. They lie in the capacity to bring about change and earn respect through action. We often divide society into layers, and the people deemed unimportant may be the ones holding extraordinary strength and value we never noticed. As this story proves, power isn't about hierarchy. It's about how you impact others and how others regard you as a result. Think about someone in your community who rarely receives attention, maybe a janitor, a shop assistant, a customer service staff member. Have you ever stopped to really see them? To listen to their story, I once had a conversation with the manager of a small shop whom I had always thought of as ordinary. But as we talked, I learned that he had built a stable business from nothing and had quietly helped dozens of local families during hard times. His story reminded me that strength doesn't always speak loudly, and that sometimes the people we overlook have created the greatest impact. We must change the way we view and treat others. Every person has value and can bring about meaningful change, even if their job doesn't make them stand out at first glance. Let's learn to see people for their true character and contributions, not just the roles they perform. Every good deed, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect on one person or an entire community. Can you begin to see the people around you not for their jobs, but for the impact they make in this world? Have you ever passed over someone just because you didn't recognize their potential? What can you do starting today to change that? Now, I want you to think about your next step. When you look at others, will you be able to see beyond their role and notice their value and potential? And what about you? Are you ready to be a part of that change to treat people with the dignity they deserve? The world will change if each of us begins to truly see and respect those around us. Thank you for following this story. Through everything we've witnessed, we've come to understand that power doesn't come from wealth, appearance, or rank. True power lies in the respect you earn and the difference you make in the lives of others. Don't let assumptions cloud your view of someone's real worth. Remember this: every action, no matter how small, can create a major impact. If we shift the way we view and treat the people around us, we can build a society grounded in fairness and mutual respect. Share this story with someone you care about. Together, let's spread the message of respect and the true value of every individual. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Who's someone in your life who's changed the way you see the world? Have you ever misjudged someone only to later realize their quiet power? Subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss another inspiring story, because these stories help us grow and see the world in new ways. We hope this video has helped you see the truth about discrimination and hidden power. Every person has value and the ability to make a difference. Starting today, let's treat people with the respect they deserve. Can we build a more just world together? Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.